All right. Well, welcome everybody. Pretty simple, pretty easy to tell by the topic tonight. We're going to be talking about 1911's, the good, the bad, the ugly, the everything of 1911's. I think everybody in here has a healthy appreciation of 1911's. I was hoping Yankee'd be able to make it because I know he's got a big heart on for 1911's, but there's nothing wrong with that. I know at least a couple of us in here like 1911s, but certainly do not think they are perfect. And then, of course, I know I got at least one person in here who thinks it is God's gift to firearms, and I think we all know who that is. But I figured a good little podcast, good little chat here about 1911s was, it was about due. So I'm just going to open this up free for all. You got something to say, jump in. No real agenda here. Nothing set. I'll just start. I just picked up that Remington 1911, and I think that's one of the cool things about 1911s is it's kind of like an AR-15 or a couple other guns out there. Not a whole lot, but there's a couple of them out there that you can the gun can grow with your taste. 1911s I think are definitely like that for me because you can go just full bore, all the way, balls to the wall, tactical on a 1911 and have it just look like, something straight out of a Star Trek movie. It's got all the bells and whistles on it. You've got the extended everything and the pimped out everything on it, or you can go completely 100% old school classic with it. And I know my taste, because I've owned several 1911s over the last, I think the first one I owned I was like 19, and my tastes have definitely changed. I've kind of come all around full circle. My first 1911 was a very old school looking one, and then over the years I ended up with a lot of them that everything from they had everything on them. They were all black with rails and all kinds of stuff and night sights and just extended everything, and I've come back around with the Remington, and the whole reason I got it was because it was a classic looking 1911. So I think that's a cool thing about 1911s, just that they can kind of they can grow with it. You can have one 1911, and no matter how your tastes change, you can pretty much make that thing look however you want it to.
Absolutely, it's the change of grips which sets the gun, apart. Sometimes, puts a different look to it, different kind of attitude,
Oh yeah, just a set of grips can change the whole look of a gun, especially on a 1911.
And the availability for 1911s versus just about any other type, there's so many options for grips.
Oh yeah. I was looking at that. In fact, what's that new grip? I think I saw somebody else do a video on it like a month ago, and then I saw Yankee did a video on it a couple weeks ago. They got those grips that put that rail or whatever on there, turn it into a space-looking gun or whatever that thing is. I cannot remember the name of the company that makes those things. But
so it sort of comes up forward from the grips all the way to the front.
Yeah, it's like a polymer grip, and then but it just comes up. It covers the trigger guard and comes all the way up to the front underneath the dust cover, and then it just forms a little rail right there. Looks pretty cool. I've actually seen them on eBay several times before I had seen any videos, and I thought that was, not my thing, at least not right now, because I'm going for the classic look on mine, but it's a pretty cool accessory.
Recover tactical, I think.
There you go. That's what it is.
But like if you have a couple 1911s, like some people got ARs for their purpose, for different things, range, queen, quote, safe queen.
Yeah.
Grips like that can turn one into a little space gun the way, like you said, it kind of looks and has this kind of different look to it. And then you can always, no harm, you just take them right off and go back to classic, style kind of.
You can throw on the mother of pearls for the governor's barbecue, or throw on the vintage cross rifles for your open carry, or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that's the thing about 1911s, because I do own two, and my high-end 1911, which is a SIG, it stays in the safe. I hate taking it out because I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to scratch it up or mess it up. And then I've got a Citadel 1911, and that's the one I take out and shoot all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's about a $500 difference in price between the two. So
yeah. I can definitely see. I got rid of my last 1911. I don't know. I did videos on it a while back, so it's been 2 to 3 years ago since I got rid of it, and I hadn't gotten another one until I got this the Remington. And when I didn't have it, I just remember thinking, when I didn't have a 1911, I wish I had a 1911. Now that I got the Remington, I keep thinking of reasons why. Well, see, I've got this one. It looks nice and classic. I should get another one that's all tactical, and then I can get another one and do this to it. And especially when you look at stuff like the Citadel and the Rock Island GI models and that kind of thing. I mean, you can afford to get a couple of them and have different looks on them, you know. And Rock Island is a good example. I mean, for me personally, I think of something that's a good budget 1911 because it's a good quality gun for a really good. I mean, if you order them online, you can get them for like around $450, and then it depends on what your FFL charges you to transfer them or whatever. I think if you buy them in the shop, you're probably paying closer, $500, but whatever. I mean, still it's fairly inexpensive for a 1911, and you can even get them cheaper than that. You go to places like CDNN or whatever. But I mean, the Rock Islands, surprisingly, well, I wouldn't say surprisingly. That's unfair.
And they're kind of proven already. They've been around.
Arms Corps has been making those things for a long time now, and it's a good design. I won't say surprisingly. I mean, in case it's a big secret to anybody out there. I mean, they're the ones that make Springfield's 1911s. So, well, they make the parts. Springfield assembles them over here, but they buy the parts from the Philippines, from Arms Corps. So, in case anybody didn't know that, but. So, I mean, they're obviously a good company, but yeah, you can pick those up. The Citadel, I don't have as much experience with. My local gun shop sells Citadels.
I have one. It's a great gun.
I haven't heard anything but good stuff about them. But again, I'll go back and say
that has the ATIs and every.
My gun shop's got a couple of those too. They've got some of the ATIs that come with the just the regular 1911, and then it also comes with a 22 slide and magazine. Mm-hmm. They're selling the pair for like $600. It comes with that little setup there. It's a pretty cool little setup.
It's a decent 22 conversion kit as long as they work decent.
Yeah.
$250, $300 to buy. Yeah.
The Citadel at a $500
conversion kits are like the the GSG conversion kit.
Yeah, there's basically I think 2 manufacturers that are making decent ones in mass quantities. But yeah. I never had a reason to put the 22s. If I got time to go to the range, I'm going to be shooting the 45. But
nowadays it's cheaper to shoot 40. Nowadays it's cheaper to shoot 45 than it is 22, unless you already have the 22.
Yeah, just about.
But yeah, no, I don't know. But Stone Guy, tell me, since you have the Citadel, right?
Yep.
So you give me a little info on that one. Where do you have any of the history, like as far as where that one's made or anything? So because I mean, Rock Island, we know that's Arms Corps, so that's the Philippines and that kind of thing. Where's Citadel come out of?
Citadel does come out of the Philippines also. I think it's a sister parent company of Rock Island or Arms Corps.
Basically, Citadel took over Charles Daly. It's pretty much the same pistols as Charles Daly 1911, the Citadel version that they have. It's a company called SAM. It's one of the offsets of Arms Corps, and they make a lot of the pistols the way it was broken down once. But all around, I mean, it's a pretty good pistol for everything you're going to get on it for $500 price mark.
Yeah, I paid right at $500 for mine, and it's got the skeleton hammer and trigger. It's got front slide serrations. It's got a lowered and flared ejection port, ambidextrous safety, extended beaver tail. I mean, it's got all the upgrades that you could think of.
That in a camper would cost you $1,400.
Style sights.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, those things are for, a $500 1911, and I've got thousands of rounds through it and haven't had any issues, so.
The only problem I'd have with it is the ambi safety. I'm anti-ambi safety.
I don't like the ambi safety. The last one I had was the Taurus, the PT 1911. Mm-hmm. And I hated the ambi safety on that thing. It was really the only thing I didn't like about the gun. The gun was great. I thought for the price, of course, they've gone up since then. I mean, now they're pushing $600 for those Taurus PT 1911s. When I bought mine, I bought it. I mean, tax and all, man. I think I paid right around $500 for it. You know, and that was after tax and everything. You know, it was like $4 something plus tax. You know, it was like $4.69. I can't remember what the hell it was. When I bought mine, that was a few years ago. That was when right after they had first come out. And you know, because with that, and that, you know, that was everything was all tactical. You know, those things are all tactical. So it's got the newer the combat, or not the combat, the newer sights. It's got, you know, the lower flare ejection port. It's got the rail. It's got the, you know, extend everything. But yeah, you're right. The ambi safety is annoying. It makes it hard to find. Well, depending on what setup you've got, it makes it hard to find holsters.
Even when you're doing offhand training, it's not that hard to manipulate the safety with your weekend.
No, not at all. It's really not. It's not a difficult safety. It's not like on some of the Rugers, which are almost hard to manipulate with your right hand. But I think the Taurus is a good setup. That's one that I really like. I've heard, you know, it's Taurus, so you hear people talk crap about them all the time. I hear a lot of people talk crap about Taurus, specifically the 1911, and it's always somebody who's never shot one, they've never owned one. But I thought they were really good guns. I mean, I had nothing but good experience with it. I really, you know, I shouldn't have got rid of it, but, you know, whatever. I think I sold it and it went towards buying another Glock or something. But I really want to try one of the there's this one brand, and I'm having a hell of a time remembering it. My gun shop had a couple of them. It's a 1911 made in Turkey, I think. And I cannot remember.
So it starts with like a G, GSF, or what is it?
It's not EAA, is it?
No.
No, it's not an EAA. I cannot remember.
It's basically Norinco's version that they can't, since we can't get Norinco's anymore. Norinco basically got that Turkish outfit, or started one in Turkey, to import them to the States now. And it's similar to
finished in Pakistan.
TISAF or something like that, for what it's called.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but I've been curious to see if anybody had any experience with those, just to check them out, because they're extremely cheap. I mean, they're like $400.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of 1911s at $400 price mark recently.
Well, maybe one of the things we should talk about is how slide to frame fit from the lower priced ones to the higher priced ones changes, and how they can affect the reliability of the 1911 platform.
Honestly, the cheaper ones, in my experience, the cheaper ones that have much looser tolerances, that, you know, kind of, if you shake them, you can hear them rattle. They're so much more reliable, because they're not as picky. They're not at, you know, a little bit of dirt doesn't jam them up as much. It's the same concept behind a Glock. It's why you can hold a Glock up and look and see between the slide and the frame.
Right. Now,
you know, they tend to run a little better. They're less picky on ammo. You know, now does that mean long term, you know, thousands of rounds down the road, that they're going to hold up as well, you know, depending on how they're manufactured? I don't know.
I'm going to put it out there that your average gun owner, even with the cheap ones, isn't going to wear it out. I mean, you're looking at
probably not. No.
You're looking at potentially 50,000 rounds to shoot out a barrel.
Well,
I don't know.
Guys are going to get that many rounds through a gun. I mean,
I've never heard of anybody shooting out a 1911.
The biggest thing
I know that really put tons of rounds through their guns. I mean, and the people I grew up with, it was all 1911s and revolvers. That's what they shot. And I don't know I've ever heard of anybody shooting out a 1911. You know, just shooting it till it breaks or barrel goes out or something cracks, or, you know, anything like that. I've just never heard of it.
So the biggest thing, in my opinion, kind of along these same line of topic here, is, like I said, the Citadel I have is a $500 gun, and I have a SIG Blackout that's a $1,000 gun, and there, you know, that Citadel is just as accurate, just as reliable. You know, it feels, as far as the fit, the tolerances feel close to the same as a SIG. The only difference that you can see is the actual like the finish, the attention to detail, and the polished corners, or the rounded edges, and the actual paint or parkerizing or bluing, or whatever the case.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's where they save money. I mean, they're not going to use the same techniques to make all the fit and finish down. And when you pop the slide off and look inside, you might see a couple little machining marks here and
Exactly. So that's the biggest thing. I mean, hell, that Citadel is just as accurate, shoots just as well as my $1,000 1911.
Yeah.
And so really and I think that's the bigger question when you get into the difference between, let's say, a Kimber and a Night Force, or Nighthawk, sorry, where there's a $2,000 difference. Is it, I mean, what are you paying? I mean, can you really justify that $2,000 difference, or are you just paying for the finish?
It depends on.
It's not just the finish. You're getting a better quality of trigger group, better components.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to lose. You may, like, one thing that I see, like if you're talking about the difference between, let's say, a $500 gun and a $1,000 gun. One thing you're paying for with a $1,000 gun is like you're not using MIM parts on little things here and there. I'm gonna just throw this out there, and people can disagree and bitch about it if they want, but MIM, there's absolutely nothing wrong with MIM parts. Okay, there's not a fucking thing wrong with MIM.
The early production MIM parts, there was some problems, but the
that was decades ago. I mean, that was so freaking long ago. I mean, nowadays MIM parts are just as strong and just as well suited to use as any other part, and it's a way that they can save money. It's it's like 30 years ago, the first somebody came up with the idea, oh, let's use plastic for a gun. Oh, it's a piece of crap, whatever. Well, nowadays it's fine. It works. It does what it needs to do. It's why polymer guns are so popular. It's the same thing with MIM parts. That's just one small thing that you're paying for when you buy a more expensive gun. You don't have MIM parts, which are a way to save money. You don't get that fit and finish, that polish. You don't get the polish on the inside, on the internal parts. You may have some machining marks here and there. You may have a slide to frame fit that's not quite the same. It's done on a machine, and somebody didn't sit there and measure it and hand tune it a little bit here and there. You may occasionally and I'll say one thing I've seen that specifically in 1911s. One of the biggest problems I've seen with 1911 straight out the factory, when you get a 1911 home, and most of the time anybody that has a problem with it, it's usually going to have something to do with the extraction. And what I've seen with that is because a lot of these higher end 1911s, the one thing that they check at the factory really well is they check and make sure that the extractor is tuned. Now, I know there's a difference between the internal and the external extractors, and it's usually with the internal extractors that you have issues, but those things are hand tuned, whereas a lot of the cheaper ones, they may not be hand tuned. So sometimes you occasionally get one, you get home, you take it home, bust it out of the box, take it to the range, and you have some extraction issues. Either it's not extracting like it should, or it's flinging fucking rounds. I had one that I picked up, and the damn thing shot straight up and broke the light bulb above my head at the range.
Yeah.
Just fucking fling that damn thing so hard straight up, the glass.
There's a lot of people that don't know that they're doing it, but they mess their own extractors up. I've told this story before, but we'll do it again. So you cannot put a round in the chamber and drop the slide extractor over.
Oh no, not at all. Not on a 1911. You can do that on some guns.
So on some guns, I've seen the guns, but
yeah. 1911, if you do it, sometimes you'll get away with it, but eventually it's going to jack up the adjustment on your extractor, and you're going to have problems. Yeah, because I did that.
That's something that you see that's one of those things that people see in movies, and they think that you can do that on any gun. So.
I was gonna say one thing I do like about 1911 is it's a good project gun. Some people still do where they build guns. They build their own guns for special purposes, for racing and whatnot, or just for performance. if they have the ability and the tools. But even on your own, buying a decent gun, not a decent, but a economic gun like a Rock Island or Citadel or some of the Philippine guns, and what you can do with them is you buy them at a $400, $500 price point and take your time with them. You can just build them up to what little add-ons. And some people say why don't you just buy Kimber in the first place? Well, maybe you didn't have $800 or $900 to start off with the Kimber, basic Kimber, but you got in a $500 price mark. And what's really cool is once you learn to take down 1911, it's a cool puzzle, and you really learn internals, and you learn how it's a pain in the ass when you take it all the way down to the bone and put it back together. But once you learn it, it starts to become more fluid to you, and things start to make more sense. And then you start learning, wow, this is how everything kind of clicks and how everything works. And it's a really good appreciation that you get from all of it when you get into that, if you're not afraid to do it. And then start customizing it as you can afford to make it. Like my Citadel, I started off at a $500, $460 price mark, and I put like a couple $100 into it. People say, "Why don't you just get a Kimber?" I'm like, because I like my gun, and I'm not afraid to drop it. It's a shooting.
Yeah, but that being said, I mean, I belong to m1911.org. It's a sort of a 1911 bulletin board. I know that's a little bit outdated, but people still use it. But everybody has their own taste. I mean, they've got owners groups for damn near every manufacturer. And I used to think the Colt people were snobs until I got my Colt Combat Commander, and it's just fit and finished better, off the shelf than most of the other 1911s I have, But you're going to pay a little bit more, not even necessarily more than a Kimber or whatever, but
I think everybody should have a Colt in the collection at one point or another. If you're a 1911 fan, you should have a Colt in the collection, at least at one point or another. And
it's got the nicest trigger of all three of my 1911s, by far. My Springfield Armory, that's one of the things we should talk about is how different trigger feel can be from manufacturer to manufacturer, or even gun to gun, and how the take-up is and how it breaks over. And like my Springfield Armory mil-spec, it's 4.5 pounds. It's not a crisp break, but it's consistent, and it's a nice trigger. I mean, it's really good to shoot with at the range, very accurate. Now the Colt Combat Commander, it's 4.5 pounds, but it's crisp, and it's hard to explain, but it just feels better to shoot. I don't necessarily shoot any better with it, but it just more relaxing, I guess.
I'll say in my experience, what I've found with 1911s, when it comes to, well, I won't call it better triggers or I'll just say different triggers. When it comes to coming across a company that I think makes a good 1911, and you can kind of tell by the trigger, it doesn't always necessarily have to do with the trigger pull or how crisp or length pull or anything like that. It has to do with consistency. It has to do with if you can pick up every one of their guns, and any of them, they're all going to be a little different. I mean, Colts is different than Ruger's, is different than Taurus, is different than Springfield, or they're all a little bit different. They're all tuned differently. They all come from different factories. They all maybe use slightly different components and slightly different people, all that stuff. But if you can have consistency in a line of pistols, and if you can pick up two Colts and have and feel like that came from the same place, that's the same trigger, and you can pick up two Springfields, or you can pick up two Rugers or two Remingtons or whatever, and then there are some gun manufacturers you can pick up two of them and they're completely different, and that's when you know you've got a less well-made pistol, because it's just kind of thrown together, and the same gun can come out of the factory within the same day and have two different feels on the trigger.
And one of them can feel excellent, and the other one feels like it's got gravel in it.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily, that doesn't mean it's bad. I've seen that in Rock Islands.
Yeah, the nice thing with the 1911, a good gunsmith can fix it.
Yeah.
Pretty easily.
But it's not a bad thing. Sometimes that's the price you pay to save a little money and to get something that's a little bit cheaper. And you can always upgrade that. Anybody who's going to own a 1911 needs to know how to disassemble it and do things like polish the internals or swap out a trigger, or it's just, in my opinion anyway. I know a lot of people own 1911s and don't know anything about them. I know people who own 1911s don't even know how to field strip them. And to me, that's sad, but it's true. Some people do. My opinion, if you're going to own a 1911, it's kind of like owning an AR. You should know how to take this gun down completely. That's just my opinion. But
it's a little daunting the first time you get it down to every
oh
little.
yeah, I mean it is. A 1911 it's an older design. It's got more parts, more moving parts. There's more to it. It's a little more complicated. Just by design, it was not designed with complete disassembly in mind by the average person. It was designed during a time when it was armorers who did this kind of stuff. It was gunsmiths who did that kind of stuff. It had a fairly, I would say, I won't even say, for the time, it had a fairly simple way to take it down, a combat field strip. But by today's standards, it's incredibly complicated. You talk about compared to a Glock or just about any other modern pistol. But
if you look at the platform, other than the little bit of experimentation like Hera has done with modifying the base design, like I have that LDA that's the light double action, which a purist would say isn't a 1911, but it is. But it's a solid enough design that you don't need to do a lot to it. Just make it work well within the design. That's one of its endearing qualities, Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's a bad design. I mean, I think if we're going to talk about 1911s, though, we do need to, speaking of the design and talk about that stuff, we do need to go into the some of what I'll call the bad, and that is you're talking about the design. It's a good solid gun, and it's done its job, and it's done its job very well for a very long time, and still to this day, one of the best guns ever manufactured and designed. But it again, going back to like what we were talking about, there's a lot to it. It's more complicated. It's bigger, it's heavier, it's less capacity than most modern guns out there. I think anybody who's going to be honest, I mean, I love 1911. It's my favorite gun. First pistol I ever owned, and but I can be honest and say, well, by modern standards, it is not the ideal self-defense pistol. It's just not. It's not even the ideal combat pistol. There's so many other guns out there.
That being said, the Marines fought for how many years to get the new CQB back in their hands because they didn't like the 92.
Oh yeah, I'm not well. I understand. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely pros to it, and I as a person, have less. Well, and I don't know. I guess it's all a wash. I was going to say, well, if I'm in a situation where if I have a firearm, I've got armorers and free replacement parts for life, because if I'm in the military or something, it's less likely that I'm going to be concerned about whether or not that 1911 is getting taken care of, is going to run properly all the time. But at the same time, they got to put it through a hell of a lot more than I certainly ever would. So maybe it's kind of a wash there. I don't know. But I think anybody who's going to be honest about the 1911 has to see that it does have downsides compared to modern pistols. That doesn't mean it's a bad gun. I don't think it's a bad gun. I certainly wouldn't buy one if I thought it was a bad gun. I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, I've got for the love of God, I've got a 1911 tattooed on my arm, for a reason. I mean, seriously. So, but I think people have to be honest to an extent and go, okay, there's a reason why I would rather carry a Glock than a 1911 around. That doesn't mean the 1911 is bad. It's just, there's obviously some advantages to having a lighter gun that can carry more rounds.
Is a 1911 so good that you'd get a tattoo on your face of a 1911?
No, but I might get a tattoo of an AK and then run around carrying an SKS.
But you could get a tattoo of a 1911 and carry around a Glock.
There you go. That'll work.
I sometimes ponder. I mean, we've got 1911s kicking around from the original production. Some 100 years later, what are the Glocks situation going to be? 100 years from now, are they going to be around, or are they going to have gone by the wayside, or I don't know. I just wonder about the longevity
Well, you guys talked about MIM parts, and the one thing that you're missing between MIM parts and the original parts that Luke is now talking about being 100 years old is the fact that MIM parts are less than a decade old, right?
Yeah.
So we have yet to see if they can last in that platform, which was designed for steel, right? So now you're using like the particle board equivalent of steel in something that's made for hardwood. It may or may not make a difference. All I'm saying is that's when you guys are talking about price and that. Yeah, it might function fine today, but that doesn't, it has to wait. We have to wait 100 years to find out if it's the same as the ones we know work, because Luke's just talking about ones that are 100 years old.
Yeah. That being said, if a MIM part breaks, if it's during a self-defense situation, obviously that's bad, but if it just breaks in use, it's easily replaced with an all-metal part, and you don't have to, go buy another 1911 for it. So
did their older Colts, like in the 70s, did they use MIM at all?
No, not in the 70s.
You had to wait for the technology to be invented. They didn't use computer stuff either.
The reason I asked is because my buddy had a Colt Commander, and his extractor broke. And never had a problem, and then it broke. But he also now that you mentioned that story earlier about dropping the slide on a round, he did that. He did that once and showed me it could be done. I'm like, you're not supposed to. He did it.
It's got a little bevel on there to allow it to happen, but it's not a good idea. So personally, I wouldn't go pick out a gun because it has MIM parts on it. I wouldn't throw it away because it does either. But none of my current guns that I have the MIM parts.
Now what I'm trying to think on, let's take Rock Island Armory. What are the MIM parts on there as far as standard? Like if you were to just pick up any one of them, what are they usually going to be? I mean, I know usually on the 1911s that I've seen, it's usually things like your safety.
Slide stop.
Yeah, it's usually the from what I've seen, it's basically the external levers and that kind of stuff. Now, are they using a lot of internal MIM parts?
I've heard of. What is it?
Not that I'm aware of.
I mean, I've heard of the safety lever and the slide release and that kind of thing.
Well, like the takedown lever or the takedown,
Yeah.
Slide stop thumb safety.
Yes, that combo unit there. And I've heard of the early ones, David, were breaking some of those because they do see some stress, especially if the barrel link down isn't set up right and the timing's off. But.
I can't remember all the parts names, but like when you break it down, the receiver further down, there's some other parts that go on top of the receiver that fit into the action as well. I've heard of some people saying those. But I mean, one of the first things I did with any gun, like even when I bought the Citadel, I replaced all the springs and all the parts, for most of it, with the Wilson Combat Kit. And some people say, well, it's putting perfect amount of pig. Well, it's up to you, man. I mean, that's the way I wanted it. I wanted better parts in it.
Part of the reason that people bitch about Kimber is some of the lesser manufacturers are using the parts to keep their guns cheap. Kimber's selling a gun almost overpriced and putting MIM parts on it, and I think that's where they got a lot of their negative press.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I owned one Kimber. I don't know how many years ago it was. This was back. It was before I started doing YouTube. And I came across one. It was a used one that a friend of mine had, and that was the worst 1911 I ever owned. And I've owned some cheap ass 1911s. I mean, I've owned $150 made in Spain 1911s that I never had any problems with, and I couldn't tell you what it was about that thing because I got so tired of it having problems that I just ended up selling it and getting rid of it and not ever trying to figure out why I was having problems with everything from feeding to extracting to just, I mean, sometimes it wouldn't go all the way into battery, just weird stuff, and I understand extraction problems in my experience, it's like the number one thing. You know what I mean? That's like the number one thing 1911s tend to have issues with. It usually has something to do with the extractor, but I mean, it's a common thing, you know, depending on how many rounds and if you're cleaning stuff right and that, you know, all that kind of crap.
Mm-hmm.
But this thing was just, in my opinion, a piece of crap, and it really, the only one I've ever owned, and it really spoiled my opinion of Kimber in general.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just made me, I don't know.
When I was looking at getting my first 1911, I was looking at the Kimber Desert Warrior, and the main reason that I was at that point looking at Kimber, I had no, you know, real experience with 1911s. But when I was younger, I shot a Kimber competition rifle, and it was a very high quality 22, you know, competition rifle, and I had a good impression of Kimber manufacturing from them. That was back when they were still in the Portland, Oregon area, but because of that, I was willing to look at the newer thing, and then once I started doing research on the Desert Warrior, I, you know, found the m1911.org or whatever, and started reading up on them, and you know, the people have had problems with them, and it's the fact that they fit the slide so tight that you really do need to get 500 rounds to it before you really know where you're at on your frame to slide fit.
I'm not a Kimber fan.
People aren't willing to do that.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you mine, and when I could get the one I had to run, it would. I can't even remember what it was. I think it was. Oh man, it's been so long now. I don't even remember. There was only like one or two types of ammo I could get it to consistently run well with. It was so finicky and picky on the type of ammo, and like I said, I got it used, and I think the person I got it from probably, I mean, I don't know, 200 to 300 rounds through it, and I don't know how many I put through it. I'm sure I put well over between 500 to 800 rounds through it on top of that, before I got fed up with it. You know, over the course of a few months. I can't remember. I may have had it longer than that. I don't remember. It seems like a blur. It just seemed like, you know, I was in a hurry to get rid of it. But yeah, and again, I guess because I honestly I have not owned a lot of high-end 1911s. A lot of stuff I've owned is either mid-range stuff or low-end stuff. That was probably the most expensive one I ever owned, and I've noticed the same thing consistently with other ones as well, that they tend to be a little more picky with ammo, but obviously not have the same issues that particular one did. But just to kind of jump over into a slightly different topic here for just a second, I want to get you guys' opinions, and maybe if there's anybody out there listening that is trying to decide on buying a 1911, whether or not it's something they want to buy, or maybe they're just trying to figure out what brand, anything like that. I want to kind of go through the list of some of the ones that you guys would recommend, as far as, you know, what good experience have you had, what's good for the money, that kind of thing. Kind of go through and maybe help some people out if they're looking to pick one up. So we'll start with Marine here, since you're kind of the resident 1911 expert.
That's internet gun expert, we'll leave it at that. But I know I started out with a Springfield Armory mil-spec. I have nothing bad to say about the gun. The one that I got was used, and it had been abused. I did have to do a little bit of repair work on it, but it runs awesome now. Probably the most accurate 1911 that I have. I really like the Colts. They're a little bit more money, but you'll never have to do any mods to them to make them a great gun. They're already a great gun. I mean, they're borderline, you know, sans bells and whistles. The quality you'd expect to get out of a black or a higher end 1911, but for a little bit more moderate price. You know, I haven't had any experience with the Les Bear or Dan Wesson, but you know, those are a lot more expensive gun. I haven't even had one to put in my hands to check out, to be honest. But you know, I've talked to other people that had them, and they really like them. But you're paying for, you know, like we talked about earlier, fit and finish, and they are tighter, and sometimes they can be a little bit finicky because of how tight they are. And I also own a Para Ordnance, and I haven't had any issues at all with that. In the side chat, they're debating whether my LDA is truly a 1911 because it has the double action trigger. I mean, technically it's not, but it uses 1911 magazines and looks like a 1911, so I say it's a 1911.
Yeah. Now on the Colt, because I know that's one that you're real happy with. Now, what is the average price range? Somebody just wants to go pick up a Colt. Obviously, there are ridiculously expensive Colts. I see them all the time at the gun shop. But
So
just for a base model Colt 1911, just something that the average person is going to be able to go pick up.
At my local gun shop, they've got some blued Colt Combat Commanders. I think they're running like $795, so right around the $800 mark, and they're a little bit pricey here. You could probably get them for $100 less in a more populated area.
Yeah. Okay.
And
because some people might be wondering, I mean, people hear people talk about Colts a lot, but I think a lot of people assume that the Colts are $1,500, $2,000 1911s.
Well, I was looking at, to give you an idea, they have Colt Combat Commander stainless that I'm looking at, and I think that it's listed at $1,050, which for a stainless 1911 of the quality that I'm expecting out of it, it's a little bit high in price, but not terribly. I don't think that's what you're getting.
Well, I will say, I certainly have not owned probably, well, I don't know how many you've owned, but I haven't owned as many 1911s probably as you have. I've owned several different brands. I definitely, with my experience, I wouldn't recommend a Kimber, especially not for the price. Especially after shooting some Rugers, after owning, and I haven't even owned it that long now, just about a month now, this Remington, which is considerably less money than a Kimber. I mean, you can pick them up online for like $600, and it's far better in my opinion than a Kimber is. Rock Island, I think, is one that I will always recommend. I think Arms Corps does a great job. I mean, they don't obviously put a lot of time into fit and finish, but you're getting a great gun for $500 or less, depending on where you pick them up. I'll tell you another favorite of mine that I've owned two of. Now, they don't even make them anymore, and they're probably ridiculously hard to find. And even if you do find them, probably a lot of people would not even think twice about them, are the old Spanish-made llamas. I've owned two of those. I've owned a full-size, government model, probably made sometime in the early 80s. And then I owned another subcompact. Yeah, I guess it was a subcompact model that was made sometime in the early to mid 90s. I don't know when. And both ran fantastic. And either one of them, you're not going to pay more than $250 for either one of them used, just because they're just not worth that much money. And they run fantastic. In fact, the smaller of the two, the subcompact one, I think I've got a video up on it somewhere on my channel.
The Max.
Yeah, it's the Mini Max or something like that. I can't remember what it's called, but it's, whatever it is. But great little guns, definitely something. I mean, if you get a chance to pick one up, and the first one I owned, the full size model that I owned was that first 1911 I got when I was 19 years old, and I think at the time I paid like $150 for it. It was a friend of mine's uncle's that sold it to me. And, great gun. I had that thing for over 10 years. Never had a problem with it. And so those are just off the top of my head some of the ones. Oh, also, I don't know about for the price anymore, but as far as just being a good gun, I would recommend the Taurus. It is a good gun in my opinion, although I've heard some people complain about some of the newer ones. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they have just kind of gone up a little too much in my opinion. At this point, I'd probably, for the money, just go ahead and get a Rock Island.
Another one that people don't think about is the Auto Ordnance is a decent 1911 for the money. They're what I would consider a budget, $450, $500.
They're not bad, but they're kind of in there with all the rest of them around that price mark.
Yeah. If we're talking budget now, the other, I think you get a lot of gun for the money is the Springfield Range Officer. They're coming in about $750, and they're a fantastic gun.
Mm-hmm.
And you got the Remington, Matt?
Yeah, the Remington R1 is the one I just picked up here. What's it been?
Okay. The Ruger. I haven't owned one. I've got to shoot one. A buddy of mine has it, and the Ruger 1911 is a pretty stout gun, and you get a lot of extra features for the money.
The only thing about the Ruger is I like it, but at I think MSRP about $6.99, $6-ish. I would maybe try saving the extra couple $100 and getting into a SIG. I mean, that's just what I feel about the Ruger. I think they have a SIG at about the $800 price mark.
Yeah, the SIG is nice. I mean, SIG is probably for a kind of a modern-looking, kind of tactical gun. I think that's probably my favorite 1911 out there right now, because the models that they're coming out, they've got the the Master Carry Pro.
Yeah, the Scorpion.
The Scorpion, the SIG Nightmare.
STX.
The TAC Ops is nice. I mean, they've got a lot of really nice models.
Yeah.
What's that one? The smaller. I think it's got. Is it the C3? The 6-hour C3. I think it's kind of a carry model with the stainless slide and all that. Anyway, they've got a lot of really nice stuff. The SIG does. Now again, it's more pricey. I mean, most of the SIG stuff that I've seen starts at around $899. So once you're talking tax and all that stuff, I mean, you're talking about damn near $1,000.
But what I like about that price mark, I don't hear a lot of people complaining that they're fudging up or they're just
not at all. They're
running.
In my opinion, they're well worth the money.
They're running at that price.
Some people might be turned off because especially if it's the first 1911. Yeah, some people may go out and buy a $1,000 1911 for their first 1911, and some people will go, well, I'll start out with something around $500, $600 first before I decide if I want to go, spend $1,000 on this gun. So I guess it depends on where you're at in that. I mean, but I think the 6-hour is well worth the money if that's something that if you're a 1911 fan, those are probably one of the best in my opinion.
Now, this kind of goes into what Marine was asking about, because that's something we hadn't talked about. But do you feel like the or the officer? What is it? The commander's a full size, right?
No, there's the government, which is the full
government.
size.
Sorry. The government and the officers.
Commander. Then there's the officers, right? Officers is the smallest one.
Right. So, do you think that they lose the function and reliability when you go from the government standard, 5-inch GI model to that smaller concealable type? I mean, do you think that that's just kind of a...
Well, I mean, in my opinion, I don't see. I mean, I've owned that one subcompact, and I bought that one just on a whim because it was just I got it for a good price. But I don't see. I'm not going to carry a 1911, so for me, I don't see a reason in buying a small one. It doesn't seem to make. I mean, I can see if you've got somebody out there who's already a hardcore 1911 fan and they want to carry a 1911. Then that makes sense why you would go out and buy a compact model, an officer's model or whatever. I get that.
I accidentally dropped out. I hit the close button on accident. But that was my comment. Was going to be, I would not recommend an officer size for your first 1911.
No.
Because if you're not familiar enough with what can go wrong with the 1911, the officer's model is not the place to start.
They have bull barrels. And I mean, there's been
some of them don't have barrel bushings, and there's special takedown methods, and they can be a little bit more finicky on ammo and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it wasn't really designed initially to be compacted that much. It just somebody figured out that they could do it. And they
that's what I was getting at. How much of the reliability do you think is sacrificed for the size?
Well, if any given gun, if it's gone through and proven itself reliable, it'll be reliable, but you got to get it to that point. You can't. I don't think anybody manufactures an officer size where I'd take it out of the box, put a round of carry ammo through it, and then carry it.
You'll find a lot of people.
Got to put a couple hundred rounds to it and find out. Did you get a good one, or do you got one that's going to need work to be a good one?
You'll find a lot of people that will go that whole if John Mosbrand didn't design it that way, then obviously it's a failure, just waiting to happen. But there have been Detonics, one of the first people to use the cone barrels, and then now they're calling bull barrels with no bushings on them. And there's some sweet spots, and some people say they like them. Shut up, idiot. But there's some other spots. There's some other people that say that they won't rely on one because the smallest they'll go is a commander, and that's it. Anything less than that, it's just a failure waiting to happen. But I've also heard of people having the compacts and officer size style ones, and they swear by them. It's just a matter of opinion. But me personally, I would always stick with the smallest I would go as a commander size 4.4 1/4 inch barrel.
The whole thing about it, I mean, once you go from the commander size down to the officer size, you're dropping around, so you get a grip frame that's 1 round shorter. And to me, to get that ½ inch less on the grip isn't going to show in your concealment, so it's not really worth it per se.
Yeah.
Because most holsters, your barrel's sticking out of it anyway, so if the barrel's 3/4 of an inch longer or even an inch longer, you're not really going to notice it because it's not printing on you, So to me, it's not really worth it. I do sort of like the one you have up in the picture has the clip grip frame. I forget.
Yeah, it's like the bob frame
right
at the back. Yeah. Well, and I think that helps more in concealed carry than cutting down the size of the grip and losing capacity. Because honestly, for me, capacity is a big issue. It's one reason why I wouldn't carry a 1911, because I can carry something smaller that has more rounds.
Right.
And so if you're already kind of limited. You're talking 8+1 usually max, and then you're going to go and cut it down even more to 6+1.
Well, you can get +1 7-rounders for the officer size. I have them.
Oh yeah.
But still, you're 8 rounds instead of 9, and you're not really gaining that much in your concealability to speak of.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's about time to wrap it up. But I think in general, for a great gun, I think they're fantastic guns. I think they're great, whether you're talking about for competition or for range. I think they're good guns for home defense situations. You're talking about something that has got a lot of power behind it. It's a good, solid, reliable design. It's been around for a hell of a long time. And it's been around longer than any other. Short of revolvers.
Magnum PI used it.
Even revolvers, we're not using the same exact design of a revolver that we were using 100 years ago. So really, out of the modern guns today that are still being manufactured and actively used, it's the oldest one, and there's a reason for that. It's a good design. I certainly wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Like just for me personally, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody as like a carry gun. Even if you can open carry, I still wouldn't recommend it, because if you can open carry and you can carry an FN 45, if you want these, you've got something that's even lighter and carries more rounds. So it's not a carry gun to me. I know some people will severely disagree. I know a lot of people who every time I say that in a video, somebody's got, I get 20 comments, people just eating on my ass about it. But,
no, I agree, because I was just about to ask you if you think it's practical in this day and age to carry a 1911.
No, I don't. I really don't. I think it's I've got 1911. I've got a holster for it. If I ever want to just have a nice gun to kind of show off at a barbecue gun, you know what I mean? Or a friend's house or something. I'll carry the 1911 for that. But I'm not carrying it as this is my go-to carry gun.
It's all about your relationship with the gun. My Combat Commander has 1,000 rounds through it with no issues, and I don't expect it to have any issues going forward. So I can trust it, But
I don't think it's about trust.
It's a lot of weight, and you gotta, gear up a little bit better for concealed carry. But I don't think you can totally write it off. If it's what you're comfortable with.
Like I said,
I'm more likely to get more rounds on target where I want them with the 1911 than I am with Glock, because the grip frame, I just don't naturally grip it well. So for me, it's a good way to go.
Yeah.
It's not for
Well,
everybody.
and for some people, that is the best choice. If that's what they're comfortable with, and that's what they're shooting. I mean, I know a lot of people that's what they grew up shooting. That's the gun. That's kind of been their go-to gun their whole lives. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm just saying, me personally, it's not something I would recommend to somebody. Because if they're already to the point to where they're already comfortable with it, then they're not asking somebody's opinion on whether or not should they carry a 1911. But if somebody's coming up and saying, hey, I'm thinking about buying a 1911, is it a good carry gun? Well, not for you, no. Because obviously you don't, this is not something you have a whole lot of experience with, otherwise you wouldn't be asking in the first place.
Yeah, I have a couple of female shooters that I know that they shoot the 1911 better than any other thing that they've shot, and they're looking at carrying a combat commander, and I think that that's a good choice. Now they do have some experience, and have gotten to the point where they're willing to deal with the extra weight and some of the quote unquote drawbacks, if you will, of the platform. But
well, I mean, I don't think there's anybody that will argue that the gun is somehow not accurate or not a good design or anything like that. It has drawbacks for modern carry compared to other modern guns. That's it. It's just that simple. It's just when you compare it to other modern guns, it lacks in the areas of weight and capacity. And that's not to say that makes it a bad gun. What I'm saying is that means that if carry is your primary concern for this particular firearm that you're looking to get, then there are some better options out there. Why get a heavier gun that holds less rounds when you can buy one for the same price that holds more rounds and is lighter and easier to carry? Just my opinion. I know a lot of people go, well, I don't care, I'll take the extra weight, and I don't care about the rounds, because I know a lot of people go, oh, well, if it takes more than 8 rounds, then I'm screwed anyway. Well, okay, that's fine. I hear people say that all the time about 1911. Oh, it shouldn't take you more than 8 rounds. Well, that's great. I prefer to prepare just in case anything happens, and I'm not, whatever. But all in all, I'll say it is a fantastic gun, and it's something that I think anybody who's a gun lover should have at least one of, if not more, because it's a great gun. It's kind of the end all be all. It's kind of the American classic gun right now, because it's not a Colt Army from whatever, but it's still being used 100 and something years later. That says something to me.
Other than Glocks in the non-gun community, I think the 1911 is probably the second most recognizable gun, just to look at it at a glance.
I'm sure, because it's been around so long. I mean, it's been in movies for 100 years. Well, not quite 100 years, but as long as there have been movies and guns in movies, there have been 1911s in movies. So, I mean, it is an iconic piece of American history. There's no doubt about it. I think it's a great, fantastic gun. For me personally, it's just not something I would recommend for carry. But if it works for, I know there's people it works great for them, so that's awesome. Good for them. I know a lot of people who wouldn't carry the stuff I carry. So, that's all personal preference. All in all, it's a great gun. I think we can all agree it's a great gun. I think we can all agree it's an American iconic firearm that has built up a well-deserved reputation. And there's just a damn good reason why they're still being, manufactured and sold today. 100 years after it was designed and then put on the market. So, I think that about wraps it up for the 1911 podcast. Unless anybody else got any last-minute things to say that have not already been said.
And on that note.
There you
1911's rock.
Wouldn't you like to see Glock make a 1911?
I don't
Haven't you
know.
seen the picture? They already got one. I saw it on
It's on Facebook, so it has to be real.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing a good company actually put some time and effort into doing a double-stacked polymer frame 1911. I mean, I know they make those, but they're not very good.
Kimber made one.
Yeah, and they're not.
We didn't get much into the double stacks and all that stuff. Those are more,
Yeah, I have a pair of P13. I love
We
it.
talked about 22s, but we didn't even talk about 9mm or 10mm.
That's true. We did not.
That's because
So
that's
you have a part 2
Travis.
coming up.
I said 10 millimeters
It might be.
classifies 9 to 11, but
I think it's
Always
a
room for more
travesty to
1911.
have anything other than 45 in a 1911.
oh, the
Oh,
10
come on,
millimeter,
10
the
millimeter.
dude, the Delta Elite's an awesome pistol. And Colt.
45. The 1911 was made around the 45, or vice versa. It was meant to shoot a 45 and nothing else.
But it'll
Damn right,
still work
no,
another
God.
platform.
You're damn right. Well.
My cold dead hand.
Enough said.
And on that note,
All right. Yeah, on that note, I think we're going to wrap it up at that. So, yeah, we'll see everybody next week. So take it easy, guys.
appreciate it.